Greetings, Guardians. Andre here with Olympus Alliance. And today is one of those moments where the game quietly shifts the power landscape without everyone realizing it yet. Because relics are not just stat boosts. Relics are identity. Relics decide how a hero survives, how they scale into late game, and most importantly, how dangerous they become when fully optimized. And today, we're talking about Drayne. His relics are finally here. And if you've been following our work, you already know, when a new hero gets relic support, that is the moment where theory ends and real meta potential begins. This is where builds stop being testing phase and start becoming account-defining decisions. Resources, priorities, dirty builds, core synergy. Everything can change from this point forward. Drayne was already showing signals of being a high-pressure, high-presence hero. But relics? Relics are what will tell us if he becomes just another strong pick. Or if he becomes one of those heroes that forces entire team structures to adapt around him. Today, we are not guessing. Today, we are not speculating. Today, we break down exactly what these relics mean for real gameplay, real fights, and real account progression. We're going to look at how they scale. We're going to look at what they fix in his kit. And most importantly, we're going to look at how smart Guardians can abuse them for maximum value. Because remember, anyone can max a hero. But Olympus Alliance Guardians. We build heroes with purpose. So get ready, because this is the beginning of Drayne's real era. And if you plan to use him, counter him, or build around him, this is information you cannot afford to ignore. Let's dive in. Now let's start with the first relic. And this one already tells us a lot about how the developers want Drayne to be played at high level. Battle Rush. At max level, every 15 seconds, Drayne increases his speed by 33% for 10 seconds. And Guardians. This is bigger than it looks at first glance. Because speed in Hero Wars is not just movement. Speed is tempo. Speed is pressure. Speed is how often a hero can cycle damage windows, trigger passive effects, and most importantly, generate energy through actions and hits. What this relic really does is create combat rhythm spikes. Think about the timing. Every 15 seconds, Drayne enters a 10-second window where he becomes significantly faster. That means for 2/3 of the fight timeline, he is either inside or very close to entering another speed spike. This is not a short burst relic. This is sustained pressure design. And this changes how he behaves in longer fights completely. In short fights, it helps him ramp faster. In medium fights, it helps him cycle abilities more often. In long fights, it turns him into a momentum engine. And momentum heroes are the hardest heroes to stop once they get rolling. Now let's talk about real combat implications, because this is where Olympus Guardians separate from casual building. First, energy generation. More speed means more attacks. More attacks means more energy. More energy means faster ultimates. If Drayne already had decent energy gain baseline, this relic pushes him into a dangerous zone where he can start chaining pressure cycles before enemies are ready to react. And in coordinated teams, this becomes even more brutal, because faster ult timing means faster artifact triggers, faster team buffs, faster debuff stacking. Second, passive and on-hit synergy. Any effect tied to attacks benefits from this relic. If he applies stacks. If he applies debuffs. If he triggers bonus damage conditions. If he interacts with ally buffs based on hits or actions. This relic multiplies all of that indirectly, And those are the relics that age extremely well as the game evolves, because every future support hero that interacts with attack frequency automatically becomes stronger with Drayne. Third, pressure against control windows. This is subtle, but very important. Because speed buffs reduce the dead time between actions, Drayne becomes harder to lock into useless cycles. If he gets released from control, he recovers tempo faster than slower heroes. That means missed stuns or imperfect control chains become more punishing for the enemy team. Now let's talk about build philosophy, because this is where I want Guardians to be very smart. This relic does not scream tank Drayne. This relic screams tempo carry Drayne. You want him alive, yes. But you want him acting. Always acting. So builds that allow him to stay in combat while maintaining action frequency will likely outperform pure survival stacking. This is classic momentum DPS logic. If he is alive but not acting, you lose value. If he is acting constantly, he snowballs. And this is where dirty builds might start appearing later in the meta. Because sometimes, slightly lower raw defense but higher uptime stats can outperform traditional safe builds when a hero has self-tempo mechanics like this. Now timing-wise, there is something very important to understand. 15 seconds cycle means this relic syncs interestingly with many fight phases. Early burst phase. First ult rotations. Mid-fight collapse moments. It is not random. It is structured. And structured relics are easier to plan around when you build full teams. And that is when Drayne stops being just a hero. And becomes a system piece. Now, the scary part. Stack this with external speed buffs. Stack this with energy acceleration allies. Stack this with artifact timing boosts. And suddenly you are not looking at 33% speed during 10 seconds. You are looking at cascading tempo layers where Drayne starts overlapping action windows with team power spikes. And that is how meta monsters are born. But I want to be honest and balanced here, because we don't hype blindly. We analyze. This relic alone does not make him immortal. It does not fix positioning weaknesses. It does not give raw defense. This is an offensive tempo relic. Which means if Drayne is shut down early, you may never reach full relic value. So smart positioning, smart protection, and smart team synergy will still decide if this relic becomes account defining or just good value. But if you are planning to invest long term, this is the type of relic you like to see first. Because tempo relics scale with game knowledge, team synergy, and player skill. And Olympus Alliance Guardians. We always plan for long-term dominance, not short-term hype. So first impression. Battle Rush is not flashy. It is not explosive. But it is extremely dangerous in optimized accounts. And this is only relic number 1. Now let's move into the second relic. And Guardians, this is where things start getting serious. Because this is not just a passive bonus. This is not just a stat amplifier. This relic directly upgrades his ultimate. Rising Tornado, legendary upgrade. And very important keyword here. Can't be copied. Already, that alone tells you the devs see this skill as core identity power. They don't want mirror mechanics abusing it. They don't want clone interactions doubling it. This is Drayne power, and Drayne power only. Now let's break what this actually does when upgraded. First, raw damage scaling. You get physical damage per hit scaling with physical attack. You get additional physical attack increase scaling with physical attack again. That means this relic is double dipping into offensive scaling. Not flat bonus. Not static value. It grows as your build grows. And Guardians. Those are the relics that age best in late game accounts. Now second, the real hidden power, duration extension. The relic increases the duration of his physical attack buff and skill radius increase. This is massive. Because normally, burst windows are short. You pop ultimate. You get power spike. Then you drop back to baseline. But with this relic, Drayne stays in empowered state longer. And when you combine that with Relic 1 speed spikes, now you are overlapping speed window plus empowered attack window. That is tempo stacking. And tempo stacking is how heroes become oppressive. Now third, range and size increase. This part is very underrated, but high-level players know how important this is. When Drayne grows in size, his hitbox interaction changes, his skill reach changes, his ability to hit backline targets can change depending on positioning, his survivability can indirectly increase because he controls space better, and skill radius increase is insane for multi-target pressure. This means better cleave value, better frontline breaking, more consistent multi-target damage. And if enemy positioning shifts mid-fight, Drayne is more likely to still connect hits. Now let's talk about what this means for real Olympus build philosophy. This relic confirms something very important. Drayne is not designed as single burst assassin. He is designed as empowered pressure carry. He enters empowered state. He stays empowered longer. He attacks faster. He keeps stacking fight momentum. That is sustained dominance design. And this is exactly the type of hero that becomes terrifying when fully supported by energy feeders, speed buffers, attack amplifiers, protection supports. Because every extra second he stays empowered multiplies total fight value. Now let's talk about the can't be copied keyword. This is dev future-proofing. They are protecting this scaling window from mirror abuse and clone stacking. Which usually means internally they know this effect is strong enough to break interactions if duplicated. And historically, when devs add copy protection, it usually means the ability has high ceiling potential. Now here is the Olympus truth moment, no hype, only analysis. This relic makes Drayne's peak windows much stronger. But it also means timing matters more. If you get controlled right before ultimate, you delay the entire empowerment cycle. If Drayne dies early, you lose massive relic value. So protection, positioning, and timing will decide if this relic feels good, or account defining. But in optimized teams, this is the type of upgrade that turns a strong hero into a late game monster. Because longer empowerment plus attack scaling plus range scaling plus speed synergy equals sustained high pressure combat loops and guardians. Those loops are what win long fights, boss fights, and high-level defensive wars. And remember, this is only Relic 2. Now Guardians. This is where Drayne stops being just a pressure carry and starts becoming a team destabilizer. Shatter Strike, legendary upgrade. And this is honestly one of those upgrades that, on paper, looks simple. But in real fights, it is brutal. Let's start from base behavior. Every 3 basic attacks, Drayne deals damage to all enemies around him. And very important detail, this strike counts as a basic attack. That line alone is insane for synergy. Because anything that triggers from basic attacks anything that stacks from hits, anything that feeds energy from attacks. This hit becomes part of that loop. And now, combine that with Relic 1 speed buff. Faster attacks, faster 3-hit cycle, more triggers, more team pressure, more energy, more ult uptime. That is closed loop combat scaling. Now let's move into the legendary upgrade. Because this is where it gets crazy. Now Shatter Strike reduces the main stat of enemies hit for 6 seconds. Guardians? Main stat reduction is not just another debuff. Main stat effects: damage scaling, survivability scaling, skill effectiveness scaling, sometimes even healing output indirectly depending on the hero. This can hit strength heroes less armor plus less HP scaling, impact agility heroes less damage plus less dodge scaling, intelligence heroes less magic damage plus weaker shields / heals. This is universal pressure. Not role specific. Not damage type specific. Universal. Now imagine this in real fight tempo. If Drayne is attacking fast. If Shatter Strike is triggering often. If multiple enemies are being hit. You can maintain near constant stat suppression on the enemy team. That is not burst. That is erosion. And erosion wins long fights. Now combine this with Relic 2 empowered windows. During ultimate, higher physical attack, longer empowered duration, bigger hitbox and skill range, meaning Shatter Strike hits more targets more often, while enemies are already weakened. This is layered pressure design. Now let's talk meta implications. Olympus Truth Mode. This relic makes Drayne better versus tanks, better versus sustain teams, better versus scaling teams, better versus late game stat monsters, because he is not just damaging them. He is reducing their stat foundation. And main stat reduction is extremely hard to cleanse value wise. Even if cleanse exists, you lose time and tempo reacting to it. Now synergy wise, this relic loves speed teams. Because attack frequency equals debuff frequency. And guardians. If you can maintain stat reduction on enemy carries during their ult windows, you can literally reduce their spike damage. Now here is the balance side, because we don't blind hype. If Drayne is controlled, debuff uptime drops. If Drayne is killed early, relic loses massive value. If enemy fights are very short, erosion has less time to matter. But in real high-level fights, this is nightmare design. Because it scales with your attack speed, your survivability, fight duration, enemy stat investment and late game. Everyone is stat stacked. So this relic becomes stronger the more developed accounts become. And that is when you know a relic is future-proof meta material. And now Guardians. We arrive at the final relic. And honestly, this is the one that tells you the true design intention behind Drayne. Crushing Force. Available at Legendary Relic level 30. And the effect is simple to read, but terrifying to understand. As long as Drayne is alive, crushing always applies for him and his allies, regardless of enemy health. Let that sink in. Because normally, crushing mechanics are conditional. Usually tied to enemy HP thresholds. Usually tied to execution windows. Usually tied to finish phase combat. This relic removes that limitation. Now crushing becomes permanent team combat value. Not situational. Not timing based. Not execution based. Always active. As long as Drayne lives. And Guardians. This is massive for team damage consistency. Because now, your team doesn't need to wait for enemies to drop HP. Your team doesn't need to sync execute windows. Your team doesn't need burst stacking moments. You just deal more effective damage. All the time. Now combine this with everything we already saw. Relic 1 Speed Tempo Engine, Relic 2 Longer Empowered Ultimate Window, Relic 3 Constant Main Stat Erosion on Enemies, Relic 4 Permanent Team Crushing Effect. This is not random Relic design. This is full combat ecosystem design. Drayne speeds himself up, stays empowered longer, weakens enemy stat foundations and boosts ally finishing power permanently. That is not carry hero. That is team fight amplifier core. Now let's talk real Olympus implications. This relic makes Drayne scale insanely in long fights, boss fights, guild wars, high sustain metas, tank heavy metas, because crushing scales with enemy durability investment. The tankier the meta becomes, the stronger this relic becomes. And the biggest thing, it removes damage inconsistency. Because normally teams spike, drop. With this relic, team damage baseline is permanently higher. And that makes fights more stable for you. And more unstable for enemies. Now, balance reality, because we always stay honest. This relic makes Drayne a priority target. If Drayne dies, team loses permanent crushing value. If Drayne is controlled, team damage drops. If Drayne is bursted early, relic loses full impact. So protection and positioning become even more important late game. But if Drayne survives, this relic alone can justify building entire team structures around keeping him alive. And that is when heroes become meta anchors. Now Guardians, let's step back and look at the full picture. Drayne relic design is extremely coherent. Tempo empowerment, enemy erosion, team amplification. That is full life cycle combat dominance. Early fight he ramps. Mid fight he controls tempo. Late fight he destroys stat scaling. Full fight he boosts team finishing power. That is not random power. That is structured dominance design. And historically, heroes built like this age extremely well in the meta. So final Olympus verdict. Drayne is not designed to be flashy burst highlight hero. He is designed to be a fight controller through pressure, tempo, and team amplification. And if you build him correctly, if you protect him correctly, if you play around his windows correctly, he has the potential to become one of the most oppressive sustained combat heroes we've seen in a long time. Guardians, this is only the beginning of Drayne's era. In the next days, we're going to go deeper. We're going to test builds. We're going to test dirty builds. We're going to test core synergies. We're going to test low cost efficiency versions. And we are going to push him to maximum optimization level. Because at Olympus Alliance, we don't just build heroes. We master them. If you want to stay ahead of the meta, if you want to build smarter, not just bigger, and if you want to turn your account into a real war machine, make sure you stay with us for the next Drayne breakdowns. Stay tuned, stay sharp. And as always, salute and friendship.